Ah, that is as it should be. Things up. And give it just a minute for people to log in. There we go. Okay, I think that's all set. We've given our little bit of delay for people to log in. So let's go ahead and get down to our discussion. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining me for my third class on the topic of suffering and how it is approached in Jewish thought and Jewish life. We have worked our way through a little bit of Kohelet and now a little bit of Eov, a little bit of the book of Job. But really, we only got the tip of the iceberg going in the book of Job. That is to say, we only got up through the end of verse or chapter 2. And many people, as I talked about, sort of leave off with the idea that Job has been patient. In fact, I was just at an art gallery recently, and indeed, one of the big pictures they had was of Job's patience. But that is 2 chapters out of more than 30. So it's clearly not representative. Today, we're going to get to Job's response. And more importantly, we're going to see a back and forth dialogue between him and the friends that appeared in last week's discussion that came to ostensibly offer offer an explanation for his suffering and maybe comfort for his suffering, but who in fact created more problems. And well, it allows this discussion to unfold. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation and see how it was crafted, beginning with Job's response to the difficulties that he has now been experiencing, which I will remind you, in the text itself are very clear, were not due to any transgressions that he had committed. So, what is his response, O patient Job? Chapter 3. After this, Eov opened his mouth and cursed his day. Patience is gone. And Eov spoke and said, Oh, that the day had perished wherein I was born, and the night which said, There is a man-child conceived. Meaning, I wish the day on which I was actually born and conceived, I wish those days had never happened. Let that day be darkness. Let God not inquire after it from above, nor let light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let the cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night of conception, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Lo, let that night be solitary. Let no joyful cry be heard in it. Let them curse it, who curse the day, who are ready to arouse Leviathan, the ancient monster of old. All right, so before we continue on this, I just hope you're recognizing that this is an extremely poetic expression. Most of us in our grief are not quite so eloquent, but that is the advantage of having the grief turned into a literary structure, such as the Book of Job. And really, the poetry in Job is incredible, and it will seem in times lengthy, and I will take some judicious quotes from later chapters so that we are not going through all of it. But at your own leisure, please go back and read all of Job at some time, because it truly is a remarkable text. Let the stars of its dust be dark, let it look for light, but have none, and let it not see the eyelids of the morn, meaning morning, because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble for my eyes. Why did I not die from the womb? Why did I not perish when I came out of the belly? Why did the knees receive me? Referring to the ancient birth practice of giving birth while squatting or kneeling. Or why the breasts that I should suck? For now, should I have lain still and been quiet, I should have slept. Then had I been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth who built desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold who filled their houses with silver, or as a hidden untimely birth, I had not been, as infants that never saw the light. This is somebody who hates the fact that he is alive. He is regretting his very conception and wishes the days had been blotted out. Now, why is he so upset? Well, it's not just that he is suffering. And this is an important element to understand in the book of Job. He is not just complaining that his life is hard, although that will be the focus of many of his friends' retorts. He is actually complaining about something much deeper, and he gets to it here in the second paragraph. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners are at ease together. They hear not the voice of the slave driver. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Why is light given to him that is in misery, and life to the bitter in the soul, who long for death, but it does not come, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and from whom God has screened himself? All right, so it seems like the grave opens up and provides release for the wicked and for the tired and for all the others, that even the prisoners, people that are guilty, are able to find some release. But me who is a good man, I long for death, and yet it's held back from me. We know from the earlier chapter that Satan was not allowed to take Job's life, only to embitter it. So he is wishing for death, but he can't get it, and that seems unfair. That is going to be at the crux of much of Job's arguments throughout this book, is that it's unfair. It's not just that suffering exists, but that suffering appears to be handed out, well, unjustly. That even someone like him, who would rejoice in dying, is not given it. And yet someone who was much guiltier is given the release of death and doesn't have to go through the suffering like him. This is going to be a theme that he returns to again and again. For my sighing comes before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like waters. For the thing which I had feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come to me. I had no repose, nor had I rest, nor was I quiet, yet trouble came. All right, so Job is extremely embittered by the situation, and he wishes he was dead. Now, this is extreme as a statement. However, we have to say, what does our tradition take from Job's lament here? Well, in Bava Batra, the Talmud, we get a text that reads as follows. Job has spoken without knowledge, and his words are without wisdom. This is taken from later on in chapter 34, at the very end of the story. But on the other hand, it is written with regard to Job's friends, who talk an awful lot. You have not spoken to me the thing that is right, like my servant Job. Right, where there is a tension between these two texts. On the one hand, God is saying that Job is incorrect, that he lacks wisdom. And on the other hand, we are hearing that Job is speaking rightly as compared to his friends. What's going on? Rava said, from here it may be inferred that a person is not held responsible for what he says when he is in distress. That there may be things that Job says that are in fact wrong, and there may be things that he says that are in some ways offensive and inappropriate. But given what he's going through, he has the right to say those things. His friends, on the other hand, whom we're going to see more of in just a minute, they do not have the right to speak incorrectly, especially to one that is suffering. And therefore, Job, who has a past because of his trouble, is not condemned, but they will be. And that is, again, a major theme throughout this text. So let's look at the first of our friends who will respond. Now, understand that the friends come consistently throughout this entire text, all 30-some chapters of the dialogue, to try and defend God, to try and say that Job is the one who is unfair, who is incorrect in his analysis of the situation. And as such, we would think that God is on their side. But as we just saw, God says that the friends are incorrect. We know that is the end state of this whole situation. God doesn't show up until the end, so we may not know it yet, but I'm just going to give you that now, because you would be tempted to think that much of what the friends say is correct. And next week, we'll look at more texts that are from other parts of our tradition that seem to be in line with the ideas of the friends. And yet we know that in the way they are saying them, there is something wrong because God himself says that their words are wrong. But let's get a few of them on the page. You'll notice from time to time an ellipse that I have taken some editorial prerogative to shorten their words in order to make sure we have as much representative elements as possible. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered, one of his friends, and said, if one ventures a word to you, will you be grieved? Can we talk? I don't want to upset you. Very nice. Good opening. But who can withhold himself from speaking? But I got to say something, which, by the way, not the right follow-up. If you say, hey, if you're okay, we can talk about this, but if you're not ready to talk, then, maybe later. But he does not actually feel like he's waiting for a response. He wants to say what he wants to say. Behold, you, Job, you have instructed many, and you have strengthened the weak hands. Your words have upheld him that was falling, and you have strengthened the feeble knees. It's a beautiful sentiment, but it is also a little insulting. He is saying, look, Job, other people have had trouble, and they have come to you, and you have helped them. You have given them good words. You have given them good instruction. You know what it is to help somebody who's in trouble. But now it has come upon you, and you are weary. It touches you, and you are troubled. All right, smack in the head, very, very rude. You knew what to say to somebody who had trouble before, but now that you have it, you're not willing to listen to your own counsel. Sure, you could give platitudes with the best of them when it was someone else's problem, but you can't when it's your own. Now, we don't know how true this is, but we do know that this is leading him into a defense of God that is going to be extremely problematic. Is not your fear of God, your confidence, meaning your awe, your reverence of God, and your hope, the integrity of your ways. If you're a good person, you should have hope. Recall now, that was innocent ever perished? Or where were the upright cut off? All right, this is the underlying theology of the friends. They go back and forth, and there is a development of their arguments, but in its core, this is the issue that is being presented, and this is the problem that the book of Job is coming to address. Who that was innocent ever perish? Only the wicked die. Only the wicked suffer. If somebody is upright, they have no problems. If somebody is suffering, they must not be upright. That simple calculation, that simple idea of some form of immutable and discernible karmic a balancing of equations in the world is at the heart of the friend's response. So when they look at their friend Job suffering, they've got a simple understanding of what this is probably about. Okay, yes, we thought you were a good person and we're going to stand by you because we're your friends, but come on, nobody suffers like this who hasn't done something wrong. So clearly you've done something wrong. Figure it out, and then we'll fix things. Even as I have seen, he says, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. You get what you sow, right? You brought this on yourself somehow. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger they are consumed. And I heard a voice saying, shall mortal man be more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? Behold, he puts no trust in his servants, and his angels he charges with folly. How much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed before the moth. Between morning and evening they are destroyed. They perish forever without anyone paying heed. Is not their excellency which was in them gone away? They die, for they are without wisdom. So Eliphaz here is trying to say, look, God is God, and even angels are nothing compared to God. What are humans compared to God? And you're complaining? You think God is unfair? You think he got the math wrong when it comes to your suffering and your righteousness or wickedness? What audacity you have. Clearly, God is greater than you. How could you be more just than God? How could your understanding of justice be better than God's? You are completely mistaken, and as such, you deserve this. Whatever is happening, you earned it. And he continues in chapter 5. Call now, Is there any that will answer you? And to which of the holy ones will you turn? Right? Go ahead, plead your case. See how that works. For anger kills the foolish man, and envy slays the simpleton. I have seen the foolish taking root, and suddenly I cursed his dwelling, saying, let his children be far from safety, and let them be crushed in the gate with none to rescue them. Let the hungry eat up his harvest, and take it to the thorn hedges, and let the thirsty swallow up their substance. For affliction does not come out of the dust, nor does trouble spring out of the ground. But man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upwards. That's the nature of fire to rise. It is the nature of our troubles to rise because we are always doing something wrong. And therefore, when I see somebody doing something wrong, foolishness taking root, I know what's going to happen. I know this person is going to have troubles. That's how it works. Affliction doesn't come from nothing. It always has its roots in the behavior of the afflicted. Who does great things? And I'm sorry, but I would seek to God, and to God I would commit my cause. God, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who gives rain upon the earth and sends water upon the fields, to set upon high those who are low, that those who mourn may be exalted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their policy. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the rash counsel of the crooked. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. Right? The wicked people eventually get undone by God. God will frustrate their plans. They will not succeed because that's God's justice. On the other hand, but he saves from the sword, from the enemy's mouth, and the poor from the hand of the mighty. So the poor has hope, and iniquity stops her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God corrects. Therefore do not despise the chastening of the Almighty, for he makes sore and binds up. He wounds, but his hands make whole. And here is the advice that the friend is giving. Look, if you're suffering, it's because you did something wrong, but you should be glad that God is making you suffer, because that way you will identify your error, and then you will be able to make it right. And once you have made it right, God will lift you up, right? The poor has hope, and iniquity stops her mouth. A poor person has hope as soon as they actually change their behavior. But if iniquity stops her from seeking to change her behavior, well, then she's going to stay suffering. But in the meantime, the poor are poor because they deserve it. If they have a way out, all they have to do is accept God's punishments and find the way to correct their behavior. And then he will deliver you in 6 troubles, and in 7 no evil shall touch you. In famine he will redeem you from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You shall be hid from the scourge of the tongue, nor shall you be afraid of destruction when it comes. At destruction and famine you shall laugh, nor shall you be afraid of the beasts of the earth. All the things that threaten us will be pushed aside. God will defend us from it all. For you shall be in league with the stones of the field, and the wild beasts shall be at peace with you, because God is on your side. You shall know that your tent is at peace, and you shall visit your habitation, and shall miss nothing. You shall know also that your seed shall be great, and your offspring as the grass of the earth. You shall come to your grave with a rich harvest, like a full sheaf of corn which comes up in its season. Lo, this, we have searched it, so it is, and know it for your good. All right, so Eliphaz finishes by basically saying, if you're good, things will be good. And if things aren't good, you're not good. Make yourself good, and they'll be good. That's the simple math of morality, of punishment, and of suffering. And understand this is rejected. Now, these words could have been written, although perhaps not with the same eloquence, by many in the 20th and 21st century. How many times have we heard somebody say, oh, such and such disease is God's punishment for such and such behavior. Such and such storm was God's punishment for such and such behavior. Clearly, these people believe they, like Eliphaz, can attribute any disaster to the iniquity of the victims. And therefore, if there is suffering, there must have been sin. And the only way out of that suffering is to correct the sin. And therefore, we should rejoice when God gives us suffering in order that we will be properly instructed. That it's just, like the heat of a stove, which is telling us to hold back from our direction so that we don't get burned further, and therefore we should be thankful. And understand that this concept and its many variations throughout the rest of the book are rejected by this text. The Bible does not like this simple calculation. It does not feel that this is the appropriate defense of God. These voices are shouted down by God himself at the end of the book and by our tradition. As we see here from the quote from Bava Metzia, if torments are afflicting a person, if illnesses are afflicting him, or if he is burying his children, one of the worst things you can imagine, one may not speak to him in the manner that the friends of Job spoke to him. Meaning, our quote from our chapter, is not your fear of God, your confidence, and your hope, the integrity of your ways. Remember, I beseech you, whoever perished being innocent. Right? So Job, the quote from Job that we just read is being used here as a warning of what not to say to somebody that is going through suffering. If you are visiting somebody's house because they are in Shiva, don't say, well, they must have deserved the accident that killed them. They must have deserved the illness that killed them. No, that is not how you approach one in grief. That is not how you approach someone who is in suffering. Now, we are going to have to, at a later class, try to differentiate between that type of suffering which can come as a form of punishment and of correction, and that which is not. But understand that because we are not able to identify that with any certainty, and certainly not when it happens to another, then we have to refrain when we are with somebody in suffering from using such a platitude to dismiss their feelings of injustice for the situation that they face. It is a critical point of bedside manner, and that is not a skill that is meant only for doctors. That is a skill that is meant for all of us. As I said at the beginning of the last two classes, this is why this particular class is not designed for people in the midst of crisis and suffering, because the way we are studying and the things that we are considering from many different angles are not going to provide solace for one in grief. Yet our tradition believes, from Torah all the way through till present day, that everybody, even deserve what they are going through, nonetheless still deserve words of consolation and guidance. Very important concept that we will touch back on many times in our discussions. All right, and I just realized that my phone is still chattering at me, and I'm going to try and shut that up because I don't want to have it continue to talk to me over and over again during our discussion. I'm sorry. I thought I had put it on Do Not Disturb, but apparently I missed one of the settings. Okay. So that's the end of the first response from the friend. And now we're going to get to Job's response. Now, you might think it's audacious that Job is saying this feels wrong, that maybe this isn't fair. But no one less than Abraham has done exactly the same. As we will read in this week's Torah portion, if you haven't already, Abraham came forward and said, will you sweep away the innocent along with the guilty when God was contemplating the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? What if there should be 50 innocent within the city? Will you then wipe out the place and not forgive it for the sake of the innocent 50 who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to bring death upon the innocent as well as the guilty, so that the innocent and guilty fare alike. Far be it from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly? And in case you thought there was another way to understand it, our tradition says, Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana says, what is the meaning of that which is written? That far, Chalila, from you to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked. This is what Abraham said before the Holy One, meaning, what does it mean? Blessed be he, master of the universe. It is sacrilege, chulin, for you to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked. Right? Our tradition understands this as audacious as it sounds, that if the innocent die alongside the wicked, from the human point of view, that feels like it is not just. That feels like it is not fair. And therefore, we have to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, as usual, much of our rabbinic teaching is there to remind us of what we need to do in order to make sure we are pursuing justice properly. But it is also giving voice to the feeling of a regular person, that sometimes it does feel like the fate of the righteous and the wicked is the same. And that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel just. And Job is going to bring that to the forefront in his responses. Again, heavily edited here. Please feel obligated to read through the full text of the book of Job. And I wish time permitted us to do it all in together. And Eov answered and said, "Oh, that my vexation were thoroughly weighed and my calamity laid in the balances, for now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are stammering," right? It's hard for me to even say this. I don't know if I can make my case right. But the arrows of the Almighty are within me, the poison of which my spirit drinks up. The terrors of God array themselves against me. He can't even form his words. His suffering has made him so bitter and so damaged. To him that is afflicted, love is due from his friend, or else he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. Like, look, the least you could do, my friends, when you show up, is show me love, not tell me it's my fault. Because if you just tell me it's my fault, what that's going to do is deepen my conviction that the whole world is wrong, up to and including God. My brethren, my friends, have dealt deceitfully like a wadi, the river, the dry river banks in the desert, like the water courses which disappear, which are black by reason of the ice, and in which the snow dissolves. Teach me, and I will hold my peace, and cause me to understand wherein I have erred. Show me my mistake, either in my behavior or in my calculation of justice, and I will accept this. But so far, all you've done is said it must be fair, but you haven't told me how it actually is fair. And if I can't understand how it's fair, I'm going to go on complaining, just like Abraham was doing. Has not a man hard service upon earth? Are not his days like the days of a hireling? As a servant earnestly desires the shadow, meaning a little bit of rest, and as a hireling looks for the reward for his work, the salary, so I am allotted months of emptiness, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. Right, look, I'm waiting for my reward. I'm waiting for my peace, and nothing is coming. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise, and the night be gone? And I am full of tossings to and fro until the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms, my skin is clawed of earth, my curdles and decays. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. It's day after day of misery. Every time I lie down, I can't rest. All I'm doing is hoping morning comes so I can rise again, because the nighttime is full of too much anguish and mental suffering. What is man that you should magnify him, God, and that you should set your heart upon him, and that you should remember him every morning and try him every moment? Just leave me alone. Not even make me better, just leave me alone. How long will you not depart from me, nor let me alone till I swallow down my spittle? If I have sinned, what do I do to you, O preserver of men? Why have you set me as your target, so that I am a burden to myself? And why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I sleep in the dust, and you shall seek me, but I shall not be. He's just collapsed. What is the point of all of this? Am I so important that you're going to make me suffer? And for what? If it was a real sin, let me seek forgiveness for it. But instead, the suffering is unrelenting. Now, again, we, the reader, we know that he has not deserved this. We know that this is a story meant to teach us something about the nature of suffering. And by knowing that, we should have more sympathy, more compassion, more empathy for this lament of Job, and hopefully respond better when we see others in similar situations. But his friends have a different response. So friend number 2 steps up. Then answered Bildad the Shuhite, and he said, how long will you speak these things? And how long shall the words of your mouth be like a strong wind, meaning empty and just, shouting but nothing? Does God pervert judgment? Does the Almighty pervert justice? All right. again, we're going back to Abraham's complaint, except here, Bildad is not saying this like he is confused. He is saying this because he is a man full of confidence. Everything must be the way it should be, because if not, you're calling God unjust. And that, well, that is an assertion that you cannot make. Again, we, the reader, know that by the normal measures of justice, God is acting unjustly in this place. Right? Normally, if somebody steals a cow, they get a punishment for stealing the cow. If they steal a sheep, they get the punishment for stealing a sheep. Job stole nothing, and yet he's getting worse punishment than the others. That doesn't feel fair to us, but Bildad doesn't know that. Bildad just knows his simple explanation of how the world works and what God is. God is perfectly fair. If your life is terrible, you deserve it. If your children have sinned against him, he has cast them out for their transgression. Your children all died because they must have been sinners. If you will seek to God and make your supplication to the Almighty, if you be pure and upright, surely now he will rouse himself for you and make the habitation of your righteousness prosper. Meaning, I'm sure that if you really were willing to seek forgiveness, if you were willing to confess, then God would heal all of your problems. Though your beginning was small, yet your end will be very great. For inquire, I pray you, of the former age, and attend assiduously to what their fathers have sought out. He's now going to argue from history and the model of other examples. For we are but of yesterday, and know nothing, because our days upon the earth are a shadow. Shall not they teach you, and tell you, and utter words out of their heart? Can the rush shoot up without mire? Can the reed grass grow without water? While it is yet in its greenness and not cut down, it withers before any other herb. So are the paths of all who forget God, and the hypocrite's hope shall perish, whose hope shall be cut off, and whose trust shall be a spider's web. He shall lean upon his house, but it shall not stand. He shall hold it fast, but it shall not endure. He is green before the sun, and his branch shoot forth over his garden wall. His roots are wrapped about the stone heap. He selects for himself a place of stones. But if one destroy him from his place, then it shall deny him, saying, I have not seen you. Behold, this is the joy of his way, and out of the earth shall others spring. Behold, God will not cast away any innocent man, nor will he uphold evildoers. He will yet fill your mouth with laughing, and your lips with rejoicing. They who hate you shall be clothed with shame, and the tent of the wicked shall be no more. All right, so you can feel that he is trying within his own theology to offer as much consolation as he can. He's saying, look, everything that grows with difficulty. The rush comes up out of mud, the reed out of water, right? These happen, and the trials and tribulations go along with it. But if you make your roots among the stones, then when the stones are upturned, you'll be cast out, and the stones aren't going to call you, they're not going to say they know your name. In the parlay of modern world of no honor among thieves. So if you are seeking to be right, you'll eventually be right again. You will be good, and you will be rewarded for good at that point. Right? God will not cast away an innocent man. So you should be able to find your way back, right? He won't support those that are evil. And if people are mocking you and saying that you'll never find your way back to the light, then they're going to be in trouble. But understand that where you are right now, you deserve, and the path before you should be obvious. Repent, confess, remedy your errors, and then everything will be right again. There will be laughter again. Your mouth will be filled with joy if you take this path. So he is trying to be helpful. He is trying to support his friend Job as best he can, but his theology is so narrow, it is so limited, that the only thing he can say to start the conversation is, you deserve this. Now let's talk about how we make it better. And Job is not getting past the you deserve this part of that offer of help and of comfort. And we, the reader, are not meant to get past it either, because we know the story. We know he didn't deserve this. So Job is going to answer this, as you can imagine, quite potently. Then Eov answered and said, "Truly, I know it is so. But how should a man be just before God?" Meaning, how will one be vindicated? Now, this is a tricky word to grapple with. The word here, just, coming with the word tzedakah, that many people know to mean just or righteous, is not only about your righteousness in the classical sense of do good. To be a tzedek in many circumstances means that you have been vindicated in a argument. The person that is awarded the verdict of correct on their behalf in a court is considered to be the tzaddik. They are the righteous one, meaning they are the right one. They won that case. And what Job is answering here in chapter 9 is that, how am I supposed to prove that I am right? How am I supposed to be found not guilty? How do I get a verdict for my side if I am in litigation with God? It doesn't seem like it's possible for me to truly and clearly and successfully argue my case. So let's see how he explains that. If one will contend with him, he cannot answer him one of 1,000. He is wise in heart, mighty in strength. Who has hardened himself against him and prospered? And so, very famous phrase, the hardening of a heart, or hardening a person. But how do you even stand before God and dare to say, excuse me, I think you're wrong? Now, we saw an example of that from Abraham, but Abraham was arguing on behalf of someone else. He wasn't arguing on behalf of himself and saying, God, you're wrong. And in that position, when you are the person who is the accused, when you are standing in the dock before the holy magistrate, how can you possibly strengthen yourself, harden yourself to be able to even present your case coherently? Behold, he snatches away. Who can hinder him? I mean, after all, if God wants to take away your wealth, your children, your family, your house, well, you can't stop it. Who will say to him, what do you do? Right? What? You're going to go out and shout at God? God, give me back my cow. God will not withdraw his anger. The helpers of Rahab stoop under him. Another one of the heavenly court in the ancient mythology. How much less shall I answer him and choose out my words to reason with him? I mean, I'm terrified of God. I mean, fear of God, this reverential awe, means that I don't know what to say that is going to work, because, I mean, I can barely even contemplate the fact that I am daring to say these words in the first place. Now, Job is incredibly eloquent despite all of that, but he is trying to make sure that we understand that one should not be expected to be capable of actually contending with God in an argument about who's right and who's wrong. Therefore I said, right? This is my clumsy way of putting it, but here's it goes. It is all one. He, God, destroys the innocent and the wicked. If the scourge slay suddenly, he would mock at the trial of the innocent. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covers the faces of its judges. If not he, then who is it? For he is not a man as I am, that I should answer him, and we should come together in judgment. There is no umpire between us who might lay his hand upon us both. Let him take his rod away from me, and let not his fear terrify me, for then I would speak and not fear him, for I am not so in myself. I wish I could properly get rid of my fear of God in order to be able to tell God how angry I am with what has been done and how unfair it is. But I am stumbling through all of this. So the best I can do is say, you know what? From where I'm sitting right now, we've got an unfair judge, because it seems like the wicked and the innocent are getting the same fate. And you know what? That's terrible. I can't put it more eloquently than that, because I'm still, flabbergasted that I'm even trying to speak back to God. But that's what it seems. And how could I, right? Who's going to judge between us? I can't appeal higher than God. So what is the point of even making this argument in the first place? This is the confusion that Job finds himself in. He knows it's wrong, but he's still devoted to God and still understands God as being God. And that is just putting him into the cycle of torment while he is also suffering in so many other ways. And that is an element of suffering that is too often overlooked. We are, generally speaking, and especially the modern world, we are problem solvers. If somebody comes in and they say, wow, I've got a really bad headache, we tell them to take aspirin or whatever is our preferred pain medication. If someone has a toothache, we send them to the dentist. If someone is unable to feed themselves, we give them food, right? We deal with the suffering as the suffering, and that is good. And we will talk in later classes about the command to help those who are in trouble, even if they might have been in trouble because they were being punished, that we still are obligated to help them. But we'll cover that in much more detail in a future class. But what we often are bad at doing is recognizing the internal torment that comes from many that are going through periods of suffering, of feeling like God has turned their back on them, feeling like maybe they deserve this. Maybe they are somebody who was so bad that everything that is happening to them must be their own fault, and that God must be punishing them for wickedness. That emotional distress, that feeling that God has abandoned you is writ all over our prophetic works and throughout the Psalms, as well as the book of Job. And yet in the modern world, we don't want to acknowledge that. We are uncomfortable when someone says, why is God doing this to me? We are confused that a person would talk about that at all. After all, if your life is so bad and you think it's unfair, just forget God, right? Just go be an atheist. I mean, you'll still suffer, but at least you won't have the added torment of feeling like God is hurting you. But Judaism says, no, you don't have to always accept everything with meek submission if you feel it's wrong. And you are going to feel upset in your relationship with God when things are bad. And that is an additional pain that comes along with suffering in so many cases. And the book of Job is going to continue the process of trying to help us know what to do in that circumstance. It does a lot of what not to do for the first, 3/4 of the book, of trying to tell us how not to answer a person who's in this situation. But we have to trot out those answers in order to knock them down. And it will only be in the final chapters that we will get more stable answers. Well, let's just hear a little bit more from Job's lament so that we can properly sympathize with him in this problem. My soul is weary of my life. I will give free utterance to my complaint. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. I'm going to complain. It hurts, and I'm going to say it. I will say to God, do not condemn me. Inform why you contend with it. What is your beef? Why are you upset with me? What did I do? Is it good to you that you should oppress, that you should despise the work of your hands and shine upon the counsel of the wicked? Like, well, what are you doing, God? Do you get off on making me suffer? Do you actually hate what you made? Because I'm made by you, right? I'm a human being. You made humanity. You hate what you made? And you're happy when the wicked do well? Have you the eyes of flesh, or see you as man sees? Are your days as the days of man? Are your years as man's days, that you inquire after my iniquity and search after my sin? Although you know that I am not wicked, and there is none that can deliver out of your hand. Right? I don't get it. If you were a person, you could make mistakes. If you were a person, you could be trying to investigate, like a judge or a community, when there was a crime, to figure out who had done the problem and then give proper punishment. But you're flawless. You're infinite. You're omniscient and omnipotent. And as such, why are you making me suffer this way? And what am I supposed to do about it? I can't stop you. Who can deliver me from you? You are the only source of deliverance. Your hands have made me and fashioned me together round about, yet you destroy me. Remember, I beseech you, that you have made me like clay. You will bring me back to dust. Have you not poured me out like milk and curdled me like cheese? You have clothed me with skin and flesh and have knit me together with bones and sinews. God, I am what you made me. That doesn't mean that I am free to behave in a sinful manner, but do understand that what you're doing now is destroying your creation. And I don't even know why. I don't understand how you can be doing this. I don't understand. Now, this is a passage, especially about making me like clay, is very reminiscent of the Yom Kippur liturgy, where we at once continue to appeal to God in our contrition, where we admit our sins and our transgressions, where we confess before God what we have done. The vidui, the confessionals that are recited over and over again during Yom Kippur, and that we are meant to include within our daily life whenever we have made mistakes. Those are meant to humble us and make us feel the weight of our actual mistakes, because we do all commit transgressions. However, there is another element in the liturgy of Yom Kippur where we are also reminding God of the relationship that we have, and that this is not entirely a one-way street. I mean, it is mostly, but we are fragile and fallible, and we are people that will make mistakes. And we look for support during this time. We look for a way to be stronger in our life and to find our way back to God. And we ask for help in that relationship to strengthen us and make this weak body and soul able to live up to what it should through our connection with God. And what Job is saying here is really that. He's like, look, if I understood this, I'd take care of it. If I felt you were on my side, I would do something. I would know that I could return to you. But I don't feel that you have laid out my crimes, and I don't feel like you would listen to me when I complain. So what am I left to do? Just suffer day after day. And that's where we're going to leave it today. We're going to run through the rest of the middle chapters next week and get to the resolution, where God shows up in the courtroom and speaks for himself and gives an answer that is wholly unsatisfactory to most, and one that our tradition will continue to wrestle with, along with the concept of suffering. After we finish the book of Job, we're going to dive into a section of the Talmud, which is given over to this topic of suffering, and will, in good Talmudic fashion, continue to weave back and forth many different concepts and many different topics. So be here next week so we can finish up Job together. And then the week after that, buckle up as we go through a roller coaster of emotions. Take care, everyone, and thank you very much for being here with me.